Come with me to a place where time seems to slow, where the land itself holds its breath. We're in the heart of America, in northeastern Iowa, where the great Mississippi River carves its path through a landscape of rolling hills and dense forests. Imagine standing here at dawn. A cool, silvery mist rises from the water, blanketing the valleys and clinging to the ancient trees. It's so quiet, you can hear the rustle of every leaf, a gentle whisper carried on the wind. It's a sound that has echoed through these bluffs for thousands of years. This isn't just any beautiful landscape. It's a sacred one. The air here feels different, heavy with history and unspoken stories. As the first rays of sunlight pierce through the fog, they reveal something extraordinary dotting the ridges above the river. Shapes on the earth, covered in grass and wildflowers. These are the effigy mounds, mysterious earthen structures that have puzzled archaeologists and captivated visitors for generations. Who built them? And more importantly, why? The silence here is profound, but it's a listening silence. It invites you to wonder, to connect with a past that feels just beyond our grasp. The people who lived here, a culture we now call the Effigy Mound Builders, left behind no written records. All we have are these enigmatic shapes sculpted into the land. There are bears, birds with vast wingspans, long-tailed creatures that might be panthers or lizards, and simple, conical mounds. Over 200 of them are preserved here, forming the largest and most significant collection of its kind in the world. As you walk among them, you can't help but feel a sense of reverence. Each mound is a deliberate act, a monument built by hand, basketful by basketful of earth. What did these animals represent to their creators? Were they clan symbols, guardians of the spirit world, or markers of celestial events? The mounds are oriented with a purpose we are still trying to understand. Some seem to align with the sun at the solstice, others with prominent stars. They are more than just burial sites. They are a complex tapestry of belief, astronomy, and community woven directly into the fabric of the earth. This place, now known as Effigy Mounds National Monument, is a quiet testament to a sophisticated and spiritual society that thrived here over 1,000 years ago. They lived in harmony with this river valley, drawing sustenance from its waters and forests. The placement of the mounds, high on the bluffs overlooking the Mississippi, was clearly intentional. From this vantage point, you can see 4 miles. You can watch the eagles soar, just as the builders of the great bird mounds must have done. You can feel the change of seasons in the very air you breathe. It's a perspective that connects the earth below with the sky above. The mounds are not just on the landscape. They are part of it. They rise and fall with the natural contours of the hills, so perfectly integrated that from a distance, you might not even notice them. But once you see them, you can't unsee them. You begin to see the world through the eyes of those who built them, a world alive with meaning and spirit. The mystery deepens when you realize that this tradition of building animal-shaped mounds was unique to this region of the upper Midwest. For a period of about 700 years, from roughly 600 to 1300 AD, this practice flourished, and then, just as mysteriously as it began, it stopped. The people didn't disappear, but their culture changed, and the monumental task of building effigies was abandoned. Why? Was it a shift in religious beliefs, a change in social structure, or was it a response to environmental changes? The answers are buried with the past, and the mounds themselves are the only clues we have. They are silent guardians of a forgotten language, a language of shape and symbol, of earth and sky. They challenge our modern understanding of history, reminding us that there are entire chapters of the human story that were never written down. Walking these trails is like walking through an open-air cathedral. The tall oak and hickory trees form a natural canopy, their leaves dappling the sunlight onto the forest floor. You pass linear mounds, stretching for hundreds of feet, and then suddenly, you're standing before the Great Bear Mound. It's one of the most famous, a massive sculpture of a bear, over 137 feet long. Standing beside it, you feel incredibly small. You try to imagine the community that came together to create it, the sheer effort, the shared vision, the spiritual significance it must have held. It wasn't the work of one person, but of a whole society. It was a declaration of identity, a prayer made of earth. These mounds were likely centers for ceremony and ritual, places where people gathered to honor their ancestors, to celebrate the cycles of nature, and to reaffirm their connection to the cosmos. As we explore this first chapter of the story, the Whispering Hills of Iowa, we are setting the stage for a deeper investigation. The mist over the Mississippi carries more than just moisture. It carries the echoes of a lost world. The wind through the leaves isn't just a sound, it's a voice, inviting us to listen closely. The mystery of the Effigy Mounds isn't just an archaeological puzzle. It's a journey into the heart of what it means to be human, to seek meaning, and to leave a mark on the world that will endure for 1,000 years. These mounds are a legacy, a gift from the past to the present. They ask us to slow down, to observe, and to respect the deep history that is written upon this land. And they remind us that some of the greatest stories are not found in books, but are whispered on the wind, in the quiet hills overlooking the river. The people who built these mounds chose this spot for a reason. The confluence of the Mississippi and Wisconsin rivers just to the south was a major travel and trade corridor for millennia. This was a crossroads, a place of meeting and exchange. The bluffs offered a strategic advantage, a commanding view of the river valley below, but the spiritual significance likely outweighed the practical. High places have always been seen as sacred in cultures around the world, places closer to the heavens, where the barrier between the physical and spiritual worlds is thin. By building their ceremonial mounds on these bluffs, the Effigy Mound Builders were literally and figuratively elevating their connection to the cosmos. They were creating a sacred geography, transforming the natural landscape into a map of their spiritual world. Each mound, each placement, was a deliberate and meaningful act within this larger sacred design. Imagine the sounds here 1,000 years ago. Not the quiet we experience today, but the sounds of a vibrant community, the chatter of families, the thud of stone tools, the rhythm of drums during a ceremony, the songs and stories shared around a fire. While the mounds themselves are silent, the landscape around them was once filled with life. Archaeologists have found evidence of village sites nearby, though many have been lost to time and agriculture. This wasn't a desolate, empty wilderness. It was a homeland. It was a place of birth, life, death, and renewal. The mounds, dedicated to bears, birds, and other creatures, were likely connected to clan lineages, with different families, or social groups, identifying with specific animal spirits. These animals were not just symbols, they were relatives, teachers, and powerful spiritual beings who guided and protected the community. So as we stand here, on the edge of this ancient mystery, we are not just looking at piles of dirt. We are looking at the remnants of a worldview, a philosophy carved in soil and stone. We are witnessing the enduring power of human creativity and the universal need to understand our place in the universe. The Effigy Mounds are a profound statement about the relationship between people and their environment. A relationship built on respect, observation, and a deep spiritual connection. The hills are whispering, and if we listen carefully, we can begin to hear the stories they have to tell. This is just the beginning of our journey. The quiet dawn over the Mississippi has revealed the stage, and the central characters these magnificent mounds have been introduced. The questions are many, and the answers are few, which is precisely what makes this place so endlessly fascinating. Thank you for joining me on this first step into the world of the Effigy Mounds. There is so much more to uncover, so many more secrets hidden within these whispering hills. If you've been captivated by this ancient mystery and want to learn more, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Do not forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter of our investigation. We're just getting started, and I can't wait to continue this journey with you. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to our journey through the hidden histories of North America. Today, we're venturing into a landscape that whispers tales of a forgotten time. A land sculpted not by nature alone, but by the hands of an ancient people. We're in the heartland of America, a region you might think of as flat and featureless. But look closer. Beneath the rolling hills and farm fields lies a mystery etched into the very earth itself. Imagine flying over this landscape 1,000 years ago. You wouldn't just see rivers and forests. You would see a sprawling gallery of colossal sculptures. Hundreds of them, great bears, birds with wingspans stretching for hundreds of feet, water spirits, and even human figures, all rising from the ground. These are the Effigy Mounds, one of the most astonishing and enigmatic achievements of ancient America. These weren't just random piles of dirt. They were carefully constructed, monumental earthworks, built between roughly 700 and 1200 CE. This period, known to archaeologists as the late Woodland period, was a time of significant cultural change, and the people who built these mounds, ancestors of many modern Native American nations, left behind a legacy that continues to puzzle and inspire us today. Who were these people? What drove them to dedicate generations of labor to shaping the earth into these fantastic forms? Were they ceremonial centers, clan symbols, astronomical calendars written on the land? Or perhaps, were they guardians? Powerful effigies meant to connect the world of the living with the realm of spirits. To understand the mounds, we have to understand the world they were born from. The late Woodland peoples were skilled hunters, fishers, and foragers. Living in tune with the seasons, they were also innovators. This was the era when the bow and arrow became widespread, revolutionizing hunting. It was also a time when pottery became more sophisticated, and the first hints of agriculture, particularly the cultivation of maize, began to take root. These communities lived in small, semi-permanent villages, often near rivers and wetlands teeming with life, but they were connected. A vast network of trade and communication linked different groups across the region. And through this network, ideas flowed, one of which was the powerful tradition of mound building. But effigy mounds are unique. Unlike the conical burial mounds of earlier periods or the massive platform mounds that would come later, these were made in the image of the creatures that populated their world and their cosmology. A bird effigy might be placed on a high bluff, as if ready to take flight. A water spirit, like a panther or a serpent, might be found coiled along a riverbank. Each placement seems deliberate, each form filled with meaning. Let's talk about scale. Some of these mounds are truly enormous. The Great Serpent Mound in Ohio, though possibly from an earlier culture, gives us a sense of the grandeur. It slithers for over 1,300 feet. In Wisconsin, the heartland of effigy mound culture, you can find bird mounds with wingspans wider than a modern passenger jet. Imagine the coordination, the planning, the sheer human effort required to build such a structure, using nothing more than woven baskets and tools made of stone, wood, and bone. This wasn't the work of a single summer. Archaeologists believe that building a large effigy mound was a multi-generational project, a communal act that bound people together. Each basket of earth was more than just soil. It was an offering, a prayer, a physical manifestation of their connection to the land and to their ancestors. Many of these mounds contained burials, but not always. Some were a central feature of a burial, while others seemed to have no burials at all. This variability is part of what makes them so fascinating. They weren't just tombs. They were complex sites of ritual, ceremony, and social gathering. They were the heart of their communities, and they were built to last. For over 1,000 years, these earthen sculptures have weathered the storms, survived the plow, and stood as silent witnesses to the changing world. They are a testament to the ingenuity and spiritual depth of their creators. But today, many are gone. Agriculture and urban development have erased countless mounds from the landscape. It's estimated that over 80% of the original mounds have been destroyed, their stories lost forever. What remains is a precious, fragile link to a chapter of American history that is too often overlooked. Why should we care about these ancient earthworks? Because they challenge our perception of the past. They reveal a North America that was not an empty wilderness, but a vibrant, populated continent, home to sophisticated cultures with rich, artistic, and spiritual traditions. These mounds are monuments, just as impressive as the pyramids of Egypt or the stone circles of Europe. They are a part of a shared human heritage, a story written on the land itself. By studying them, we can begin to piece together the worldview of the people who built them. We can learn about their social structures, their spiritual beliefs, and their relationship with the natural world. These mounds are not just historical artifacts. They are sacred sites, and for the descendants of the Mound Builders, they remain places of immense cultural and spiritual importance. So, the next time you travel through the American Midwest, look a little closer at the landscape. The gentle rise you see on the horizon might not be a natural hill. It might be the wing of a giant bird, or the back of a bear. Shaped by unknown hands a millennium ago, a silent reminder of the incredible story that lies just beneath our feet. Join us next time as we delve deeper, exploring specific mound sites and trying to decode the meaning behind these magnificent animal forms. We'll talk to archaeologists, tribal historians, and cultural preservationists who are working to protect and understand this incredible legacy. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more hidden histories. Don't forget to ring the bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We'll see you then. Welcome back to our journey through the incredible world of ancient mounds. Today we're diving into Chapter 3, The Bear and the Bird. We're going to explore two of the most iconic and frequently found shapes that these ancient cultures sculpted into the landscape. Magnificent bears and graceful birds. Imagine you're soaring high above the American Midwest, looking down on a lush, green canvas. Suddenly, a shape emerges from the earth. It's not just a random hill. It's a perfectly formed effigy, a giant sculpture made of soil. Among the most impressive and common are the bear mounds. From our bird's-eye view, these aren't just vague suggestions of a bear. They are often remarkably detailed. You can clearly make out a robust body, for sturdy legs planted on the ground, a distinct head, and sometimes even a short, stubby tail. These earthen bears often appear to be in motion, lumbering across the terrain. Some are depicted mid-stride, one paw forward, as if on a great journey. The scale is monumental. Some of these bear effigies stretch for over 100 feet, their forms hugging the natural contours of the hills and ridges. They are often oriented in specific directions, perhaps tracking celestial events or pointing towards important water sources. The head, usually rounded, and the bulky torso are unmistakable. Seeing one from above, you get a sense of immense power and permanence, a guardian spirit watching over the land. The Effigy Mounds National Monument in Iowa is a fantastic place to see this. There, you can find a whole procession of bear mounds marching across the bluff tops, overlooking the Mississippi River. When viewed from the air, they form a stunning parade of earthen animals. The builders had an incredible understanding of perspective, creating these figures to be seen, perhaps, by the sky spirits they venerated. These mounds weren't just piles of dirt, they were powerful symbols, physical manifestations of the bear's significance in their cosmology, creature representing strength, courage, and transformation. Now, let's shift our gaze and look for another common shape. Imagine gliding over the landscape again. This time, a different form comes into view, one of elegance and freedom. It's a bird effigy. From above, these mounds are simply breathtaking. You can immediately identify the outstretched wings, spanning wide as if in full flight. The wingspans of these earthen birds can be enormous, sometimes extending over several hundred feet from tip to tip. Unlike the grounded, heavy form of the bear, the bird mounds convey a sense of lightness and movement through the air. You can often distinguish a slender body, a fan-shaped tail, and a defined head, sometimes with a hooked beak, suggesting a raptor like a hawk or an eagle. The Great Serpent Mound in Ohio, while famously a serpent, has features that some archaeologists believe are linked to avian symbolism, showcasing the importance of flight and the sky world. In Wisconsin, the so-called bird capital of the mound building world, you can find countless examples. From the air, you see them soaring over ridges, their wings aligned with the horizon. Some have forked tails, others rounded, indicating different species or symbolic meanings. There are even mounds that appear to be birds with two heads, a mysterious and powerful image. These weren't just random decorations. They were maps of the cosmos, connecting the earthly realm with the celestial one. The bird, a creature that could travel between the earth and the sky, was a potent symbol of communication with the heavens, of vision, and of the soul's journey. When you see a bird mound from above, it's as if the earth itself is about to take flight. The long, sweeping lines of the wings create a dynamic visual that is both graceful and awe-inspiring. It is a testament to the builders' artistry and their deep spiritual connection to the natural world. They didn't just observe birds. They understood their symbolic power and embedded it into the very fabric of the landscape for eternity. So, when we look down from the sky, we see a world populated by giants. We see powerful bears walking with purpose across the land, symbolizing strength and the earth itself. And we see magnificent birds with wings spread wide, ready to soar into the heavens, representing the spirit in the sky. These are not just archaeological curiosities. They are sacred texts written in earth, telling the stories of a people and their profound relationship with the world around them. The bear and the bird represent a fundamental duality: the grounded and the celestial, the earthly and the spiritual. By building these mounds, ancient peoples were not just shaping the land, they were shaping their universe, making it a place where these powerful animal spirits were ever present, visible guardians and guides. Viewing them from above gives us a privileged glimpse into their minds, revealing a landscape alive with meaning and myth. It is a powerful reminder that the ground beneath our feet holds stories that are waiting to be seen, if only we know how to look. Thank you so much for joining me on this aerial tour of the bear and bird mounds. I hope it's given you a new perspective on these ancient wonders. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to explore together. Until next time, keep looking up and keep looking down. You never know what stories the earth has to tell. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we're stepping deep into the past, into the heartland of North America, to uncover the story of the Woodland era people. Imagine a time starting around 3,000 years ago, when the dense forests and winding rivers of the Midwest were home to vibrant, innovative cultures. These weren't just scattered bands of hunter-gatherers. There were societies on the brink of a revolution that would reshape the very landscape itself. So, grab your virtual field gear, because we're about to explore the world of the first great builders of the American Midwest. What makes the Woodland era so fascinating? It's a period of incredible change and innovation. Before this time, people lived a more nomadic lifestyle, moving with the seasons and the herds. But during the Woodland era, something shifted. Communities began to settle down, establishing more permanent villages. And with this new stability came a burst of creativity. One of the most significant inventions of this time was pottery. For the first time, people could create durable, fireproof containers. This might not sound like a big deal, but it was a game changer. It meant they could cook food differently, boiling grains and stews, which unlocked new nutrients and made food easier to digest. It also meant they could store food more effectively, gathering surpluses of nuts, seeds, and grains to last through the long, cold winters. This ability to store food was a crucial step towards building larger, more stable communities. Along with pottery, the Woodland people refined their hunting technology. While the spear and otlatol, or spear thrower, were still in use, a revolutionary new weapon began to appear. The bow and arrow. This was the cutting-edge technology of its day. It was more accurate, had a longer range, and was faster to reload than a spear. This made hunting animals like deer, turkey, and elk far more efficient, providing a reliable source of protein for their growing villages. Their toolkit was a testament to their resourcefulness. They crafted sharp spear points and arrowheads from stone like chert and flint. They made axes from harder, ground stone, to clear forests for their gardens and to build their homes. They used bone and antler to create everything from needles and awls for sewing hides into clothing, to fish hooks and harpoons for pulling fish from the abundant rivers. Every tool tells a story of a deep understanding of their natural environment. But perhaps the most awe-inspiring legacy of the Woodland people is etched into the landscape itself. The mounds. These weren't just random piles of dirt. They were monumental earthworks, carefully constructed over generations, that served profound purposes. These mound-building cultures, often referred to as the Adena, and later the Hopewell, created thousands of these structures across the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys. Some mounds were conical, burial mounds, where important individuals were laid to rest with elaborate grave goods, ceremonial blades, copper ornaments, and intricately carved stone pipes. These burials suggest a society with complex social structures and deep respect for their ancestors. They believed in an afterlife, and they sent their loved ones on their final journey with items of beauty and significance. Other mounds were geometric, built in the shapes of circles, squares, and octagons, often connected by long, earthen walls. These weren't burial sites. They were ceremonial centers. Imagine massive enclosures, their walls several feet high, creating sacred spaces for gatherings, rituals, and community events. Some of these complexes are so vast and precise that archaeologists believe they were aligned with astronomical events, like the solstices or the cycles of the moon. This suggests a sophisticated knowledge of the cosmos and a desire to connect their earthly world with the celestial one. These sacred landscapes were the cathedrals of their time, places where the entire community could come together to reinforce their shared beliefs and social bonds. It is truly incredible to think about the coordination and sheer human effort required to build these earthworks, all without beasts of burden or metal tools. Life wasn't just about ceremony and building, though. Daily life was deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the land and water. The rivers were their highways, their grocery stores, and their spiritual lifelines. They traveled in dugout canoes, trading, hunting, and fishing along these vital waterways. The rivers provided fish, mussels, and turtles, while the fertile floodplains were perfect for gardening. During the Woodland period, people began to domesticate native plants like sunflowers, squash, and other seed-bearing plants. This wasn't full-scale agriculture yet, but it was a crucial step. It supplemented their diet of wild game, nuts, and berries, and allowed their villages to grow and thrive in one place for longer periods. Their connection to the land was absolute. They knew which plants had medicinal properties, which wood was best for building, and where to find the best stone for their tools. One of the most remarkable aspects of the woodland cultures, particularly the Hopewell, was their vast interaction network. This wasn't a single, unified empire, but a collection of interconnected communities that shared ideas, rituals, and goods over enormous distances. Archaeologists have found materials in Ohio mounds that came from hundreds, even thousands, of miles away. There's obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, copper from the Great Lakes, mica from the Appalachian Mountains, and seashells from the Gulf of Mexico. This wasn't simple trade for survival. These were exotic, precious materials used to create stunning works of art and ritual objects. Think of finely crafted platform pipes carved into the shapes of animals, or gleaming copper breastplates, or delicate sheets of mica cut into intricate shapes. The presence of these items shows that the woodland people were part of a dynamic, continent-spanning network of communication and exchange. It paints a picture of a world that was far more connected and sophisticated than we often imagine. So, what happened to these incredible mound-building cultures? It's a question that still puzzles archaeologists. Around 400 AD, the Great Hopewell interaction sphere began to fade. The construction of large, monumental earthworks slowed and eventually stopped. The long-distance trade networks seemed to dissolve. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but more of a gradual shift. Perhaps the climate changed, or perhaps new social or religious ideas took hold, leading people to express their beliefs in different ways. But their legacy didn't vanish. The knowledge, the traditions, and the people themselves became the foundation for the next great cultural chapter in the region. The Mississippian culture, which would build even larger cities and mounds. The woodland people were the pioneers who laid the groundwork, transforming the landscape and creating a cultural bedrock that would endure for centuries. When you look at a map of the Midwest today, you see cities, highways, and farm fields. But beneath it all, the legacy of the woodland people remains. Their mounds still stand as silent sentinels in parks and protected areas, a physical link to a rich and complex past. They remind us that this land has been home to innovative and deeply spiritual people for thousands of years. They challenge us to look at the world around us with new eyes, to see not just dirt and trees, but a landscape full of stories, history, and the enduring spirit of the people who shaped it. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of the Woodland era. It's a story of innovation, community, and a profound connection to the natural world. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the past. Let me know in the comments what part of the woodland culture you find most fascinating. We'll see you next time. Have you ever stood before something so immense, so ancient, that it just takes your breath away? Imagine looking out over a landscape, not at mountains carved by glaciers, but at hills and ridges shaped by human hands into the forms of gigantic animals. This isn't science fiction. This is the legacy of the Mound Builders of North America. Welcome back to our journey into the past. Today, in Chapter 5, we're digging into the incredible story of how these ancient peoples literally moved the earth to express their deepest beliefs. We're talking about monumental undertakings, like the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio, a quarter-mile-long snake slithering across the land, or the Marching Bear Mounds in Iowa. These weren't built with bulldozers or excavators. The tools they had were astonishingly simple: woven baskets, digging sticks made of wood or bone, and clamshell hose. And, of course, their own 2 hands. Think about that for a second. Every single handful of dirt, every basket load of clay and soil, was scooped up and carried, one trip at a time. It's estimated that some of these larger mounds contain tens of thousands of tons of earth. This wasn't the work of one person or even a single generation. Building these effigies was a massive, communal effort that likely spanned decades, even centuries. So why go to such extraordinary lengths? This wasn't just about building something big. It was an act of profound devotion. Each basket of soil was a prayer. Each step taken was part of a ceremony. These animal shapes weren't random. They were powerful symbols tied directly to their cosmology, their spiritual world. The snake, the bear, the bird, these creatures held specific meanings and powers within their belief systems. By sculpting them into the very fabric of the earth, they were creating a permanent connection between their community, the land, and the spiritual realm. Imagine the scene. Hundreds of people working together under the sun. The air is filled with the rhythmic sounds of digging, the chatter of voices, perhaps even the cadence of songs and chants. This was more than just construction. It was community building in the most literal sense. It was a shared project that bound people together, reinforcing their social ties and their collective identity. Everyone had a role to play, from the elders directing the work to the children carrying smaller loads. This process would have required incredible planning and organization. They had to understand the properties of different soils, how to layer them to prevent erosion, and how to maintain the precise shape of the animal over a vast area. This was sophisticated engineering, guided by tradition and a deep understanding of their environment. They weren't just piling up dirt. They were sculpting a sacred landscape with purpose and precision. The placement of these mounds was also intentional. Many are aligned with celestial events, like solstices and equinoxes, tying their earthly creations to the cosmic cycles of the sun, moon, and stars. Standing at one of these sites, you can feel that connection. You're not just looking at an archaeological curiosity. You're standing within a sacred space, a focal point for ceremony, ritual, and community gathering for countless generations. These earthworks were a declaration of who they were and what they believed, written on a scale that could be seen from the heavens. They were a testament to the power of a community united by a shared purpose. When we look at these mounds today, we're not just seeing piles of earth. We are seeing the physical manifestation of faith, cooperation, and an enduring human desire to leave a mark to shape the world in a way that reflects the deepest truths of the heart. The sheer labor involved is staggering, but it highlights what people can achieve when they work together for something they believe in. They didn't see it as a burden. They saw it as a sacred duty, a way to honor their ancestors, their spirits, and the world around them. The effort itself was part of the offering. These silent giants of soil and clay are more than just historical artifacts. They are a powerful reminder of our connection to the past and to the earth itself. They show us that with simple tools, a strong community, and a powerful vision, humanity can achieve the extraordinary. It's a story of devotion, written not in books, but in the very land we walk upon. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration. It's truly humbling to consider the dedication behind these incredible structures. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more chapters of our shared human story. We've got so much more to uncover together. See you next time. Have you ever looked at an ancient ruin and wondered not just what asterisk it was, but asterisk why? Asterisk it was built right there. Today, we re-journeying back in time to explore one of the most fascinating aspects of ancient cultures. The sacred landscape. We'll uncover how the very placement of monumental mounds along ridges, near rivers, and in specific patterns reveals a deep spiritual connection to the world. This isn't just about building, it's about weaving human existence into the fabric of the cosmos. Let's start with the most obvious feature: water. Rivers were the lifeblood of ancient societies. They provided water for drinking and farming, fish for eating, and routes for travel and trade. It's no surprise, then, that we find so many mounds built near major rivers like the Mississippi, the Ohio, or the Scioto. But their significance went far beyond the practical. For many cultures, rivers were seen as boundaries between worlds, the world of the living and the realm of spirits or ancestors. Placing a ceremonial mound or a burial site near a river could have been a way to facilitate the soulless journey into the afterlife. The flowing water might have symbolized the flow of life, death, and rebirth. Imagine a funeral procession moving along a riverbank to a sacred mound. The location itself would have amplified the power and meaning of the entire ritual, connecting the community, the deceased, and the spiritual world in one profound act. Now, let's lift our gaze from the river valleys to the high places, the ridges and hilltops. Why build on a ridge? From a practical standpoint, it offers a commanding view of the surrounding area, making it a strategic location for defense or observation. But spiritually, height has always been associated with proximity to the heavens. By constructing their most important structures on elevated ground, ancient peoples were literally and figuratively reaching for the sky. These high places were closer to the sun, the moon, and the stars, celestial bodies that were often central deities or powerful cosmic forces in their belief systems. Building on a ridge separated the sacred from the profane, lifting ceremonial activities out of the ordinary, everyday world below and placing them in a liminal space, a threshold between earth and sky. It created a natural stage for rituals, where leaders or shamans could be seen by the community below, their actions framed against the backdrop of the heavens. It was a statement of power, but also one of reverence. Beyond just a single location, the asterisk patterns in which these mounds were arranged tell an even more compelling story. We're not talking about random placement. This was intentional, sophisticated landscape architecture with deep symbolic meaning. One of the most common patterns is the alignment of mounds with celestial events. Think of the famous solstice alignments at sites like Cahokia's Woodhenge or the Hopewell Earthworks in Ohio. Mounds and their associated enclosures were often precisely positioned to mark the sunrise or sunset on the longest and shortest days of the year, the solstice year. This wasn't just an ancient calendar for farming. It was a way to synchronize human life with the rhythms of the universe. By marking these powerful moments in the celestial cycle, the community affirmed its place in the cosmic order. The landscape itself became a clock and a church, all in one, reinforcing the belief that their lives were guided and blessed by the powers of the sun and the cosmos. Another fascinating pattern is the geometric precision we see. The Hopewell culture, for example, created massive earthworks in the shapes of perfect circles, squares, and octagons, often interconnected by long, parallel walls. These shapes weren't accidental. The circle often represents the sky, wholeness, and the celestial realm, while the square can symbolize the earth, stability, and the four cardinal directions. Combining these shapes, like a square and a circle joined together, was a powerful act of integrating the earthly and the divine. It was a way of mapping their cosmology onto the land itself, turning the entire region into a sacred diagram. Walking through these enclosures would have been a deeply spiritual experience, a journey through the very structure of their universe, made tangible on the earth. It wasn't just a place to hold a ceremony. The place was asterisk. The ceremony. We also see patterns that mirror the natural world. Some mounds are effigies, built in the shape of animals like serpents, birds, or bears. The Great Serpent Mound in Ohio is a spectacular example. This wasn't just art. These animals were powerful spirits in their cosmology. A serpent might represent the underworld or the regenerative powers of the earth, while a bird could symbolize the upper world and the sky. By creating a massive effigy of a powerful spirit animal on the land, the builders were likely invoking its power, seeking its protection, or honoring its role in their creation stories. The landscape became a canvas on which they painted their mythology, making their beliefs visible and permanent. These effigies transformed the natural environment into a living, breathing testament to their spiritual worldview, a constant reminder of the powerful forces that shaped their existence. Finally, let's consider the idea of a ritual pathway. In many mound complexes, the structures are arranged in a way that seems to guide movement. Long earthen causeways might connect different ceremonial areas, leading participants on a prescribed journey. Imagine moving from a circular enclosure representing the sky, down a long path, and into a square enclosure representing the earth. This physical journey would have mirrored a spiritual transformation. The landscape was designed to choreograph ritual, to move people physically and emotionally through a sequence of sacred spaces. Each step of the way, the architecture of the earth would have reinforced the meaning of the ceremony, creating a powerful, immersive experience that engaged all the senses. It was a way of walking through a story, of physically participating in the myths and beliefs that held their society together. The entire landscape was a stage, and the people were the actors in a grand, cosmic drama. So, when we look at an ancient mound, we're not just seeing a pile of dirt. We're seeing a deliberate choice, a point of connection between a people and their universe. The placement near rivers linked them to the flow of life and the spirit world. Building on ridges lifted them closer to the gods in the sky. The patterns of their constructions aligned their lives with the sun, moon, and stars, and the shapes they built mapped their cosmology onto the very earth they walked on. The sacred landscape was more than just a backdrop for their lives. It was an active participant. It was a calendar, a church, a storybook, and a guide. It shows us that for these ancient cultures, there was no separation between the physical and the spiritual. The entire world was alive with meaning, and by shaping the land, they were shaping their relationship with the sacred. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the sacred landscape. It's truly humbling to think about the incredible depth of thought and belief that went into creating these places. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into our incredible past. Let me know in the comments which ancient site you find most inspiring. See you next time. Welcome, bike history explorers. We've journeyed through ancient caves, marveled at incredible craftsmanship, and stood in awe of art that has survived millennia. But today, we tackle the biggest question of all, the one that whispers from every painted hoof and carved tusk. Why animals? Why did our ancestors, across continents and cultures, dedicate so much of their creative energy to depicting the animal world? This is Chapter 7, The Mystery of Meaning. Let's start with the most intuitive idea. Animals as guardians. Imagine living in a world where your survival depended on understanding the creatures around you. Aurochs were powerful, lions were fearsome, and horses were swift. Painting these animals on the walls of a sacred space could have been a way to invoke their strength, to ask for protection from the dangers of the wild, or even to guard the sanctity of the cavern itself. These weren't just pictures, they were powerful sentinels, standing watch in the flickering torchlight. A barrier between the human world and the great unknown. The cave wall becomes a shield, and the animal a powerful protector. But what if the connection was deeper, more personal? Let's explore the concept of clan totems. For many indigenous cultures throughout history, specific animals represent the identity and lineage of a family or a clan. Te Bear clan, the Eagle clan, Te Wolf clan, these weren't just names. They signified a spiritual kinship, a shared ancestry with the animal itself. Could these ancient paintings be the earliest expressions of this idea? Perhaps a group of hunters who identified with the spirit of the bison would paint it to declare their identity, to strengthen their community bond, and to honor the creature that defined them. In Tisbu, the art isn't just about what they saw, but about who they were. Each painting becomes a signature, a declaration of, we are here, and we are the people of the horse, or we are the children of the mammoth. This leads us to an even more profound possibility. Animals as spirit beings. In many shamanistic traditions, the physical world is just one layer of reality. There exists a spirit world, a realm of powerful forces and entities that can be accessed by shamans or spiritual guides. And very often, these spirit guides take the form of animals. The Shama might journey to the spirit world by becoming an eagle to fly, or a bear to find strength. The animals on the cave walls, then, might not be animals at all. They could be portraits of the spirits themselves. The strange, sometimes abstract ways they are drawn with extra legs, or superimposed on one another might represent the fluid, otherworldly nature of these beings as seen during a trance or a vision. The cave becomes a portal, a place where the veil between worlds is thin, and the animal paintings are the maps and guides for that spiritual journey. Now, let's zoom out even further, to the grandest scale of all. Animals as cosmological symbols. Ancient people were brilliant astronomers and keen observers of nature's cycles. The sun's journey, the phases of the moon, the turning of the seasons, these were the rhythms of life itself. What if the animals on the walls represented constellations or celestial events? The Hall of the Bulls at Lascaux, for example, has been interpreted by some researchers as a prehistoric star map, with the bulls representing the constellation Taurus and other dots and figures marking the Pleiades star cluster. In this interpretation, the cave is a planetarium. The art isn't just about the animals on the land, but about their celestial counterparts in the sky. It's a way of mapping the cosmos, of understanding humanity's place within the grand, cyclical dance of the universe. The bison represents not just the herd, but the turning of the seasons and the promise of life's return. So, were they guardians, protecting the sacred? Were they clan totems, defining identity? Were they spirit beings, bridges to another reality? Or were they cosmological symbols, mapping the heavens onto the earth? The truth is, the mystery of meaning is so compelling because it's likely not one of these answers, but all of them, woven together. Different symbols could have held different meanings for different people at different times. A bison could be a clan totem to one group, a representation of a constellation to another, and a powerful spirit guide to a shaman within that same group. The art is not a simple code with a single key. It's a rich, complex language of myth, belief, and identity that we are only just beginning to understand. It reflects a world where the lines between human, animal, spirit, and star were beautifully and mysteriously blurred. The animals were not just part of their world. They asterisk. What asterisk? Their world. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the heart of ancient symbolism. The questions are bigger than the answers, and that's what makes this journey so exciting. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into our shared past. Let me know in the comments which theory resonates most with you. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through the monumental landscapes of the past. Today, in Chapter 8, we're going beneath the mounds. We've explored their exteriors, marveled at their scale, and considered their place in the cosmos. But what lies within? What secrets have these ancient earthworks held for centuries, or even millennia? The answer, as archaeologists have discovered, is as complex and varied as the cultures that built them. So, grab your virtual trowel, and let's carefully peel back the layers of time. When archaeologists first began to systematically investigate these mounds, they were driven by a profound sense of curiosity. Were they forts, temples, tombs? The truth is, they were all of these things, and more. Excavation is a slow, meticulous process. It's not a treasure hunt, it's a scientific investigation. A conversation with the past where every grain of soil has a story to tell. Each layer, or stratum, represents a different period in time. And reading these layers is like reading the pages of a history book written in earth and clay. Perhaps the most common and compelling discoveries within these mounds are burials. These are not simple graves. They are often elaborate, sacred spaces designed to honor the deceased and guide them into the afterlife. Some mounds contain a single, prominent individual, laid to rest with great ceremony. Imagine a central tomb, carefully constructed with logs or stone slabs, housing a leader or a revered elder. Their placement speaks volumes about their importance to the community. They were quite literally at the heart of the world their people built. In other mounds, we find communal burials, dozens, sometimes hundreds, of individuals laid to rest together over many generations. These sites suggest a deep sense of community and ancestry. It wasn't just about one important person. It was about the entire lineage, the collective identity of the group being woven into the very fabric of the landscape. The way the bodies are arranged, whether extended, flexed, or bundled, gives us clues about their funerary customs and beliefs about death and rebirth. It's a powerful reminder that these mounds were active, living parts of their communities for centuries. And what about the artifacts? The objects buried with the dead or placed as offerings within the mound are a direct line to the people themselves. These aren't just things. They are expressions of artistry, status, belief, and connection. We find beautifully crafted pottery, perhaps once filled with food and drink for the journey to the next world. The intricate designs aren't just decoration. They are symbols, stories, and markers of cultural identity. We also discover tools and weapons, like finely chipped flint, projectile points, or polished stone axes. These objects speak to the daily lives and skills of the people. They were hunters, farmers, and artisans. Placing these items in a burial might signify the person's role in life, or provide them with the tools they would need in the afterlife. It shows a belief system where the next life mirrored this one, requiring the same skills and provisions. Then there are the truly extraordinary finds, objects that speak of long-distance trade and a complex social world. We've unearthed copper from the Great Lakes region, hundreds of miles away. We've found shells from the Gulf of Mexico, carried far inland. We've discovered mica from the Appalachian Mountains, cut into intricate shapes of hands, birds, or serpents. These items were incredibly precious. They weren't just exotic goods. They were imbued with power and sacred meaning, connecting different cultures across a vast continent. Finding them in a mound in, say, the Ohio Valley, tells us that this community was part of a sprawling network of interaction, a vibrant world we are only just beginning to understand. But here is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Not all mounds contain burials or spectacular artifacts. In fact, many mounds, upon careful excavation, are found to contain ... nothing. Well, not exactly nothing. They contain the earth they were built with, the faint traces of the baskets used to carry the soil, the remnants of post holes from structures that once stood on top, but no central tomb, no cache of exotic goods. What does this mean? It challenges our simple assumption that mounds were only for burying the dead. These so-called empty mounds are just as significant. They force us to think more broadly. Perhaps some mounds were built purely as ceremonial platforms, elevating priests or leaders above the populace during important rituals. Imagine a structure built on top, a temple or a council house, that has long since decayed, leaving only its footprint behind. The mound itself was the monument, a permanent stage for the community's spiritual and social life. Others may have served as territorial markers, bold declarations on the landscape claiming this place as home. Building a massive earthwork is a profound statement of permanence and belonging. It says, "We are here. This is our land. Our ancestors are here." These mounds didn't need anything inside them to be powerful. Their power was in their very presence, their sheer scale and visibility. This mystery is a crucial part of archaeology. It reminds us to approach the past with humility. We don't have all the answers, and we may never. The people who built these mounds left no written records to explain their intentions. We are left to interpret the clues they left behind in the earth. The empty mounds are a perfect example of this. They are a puzzle, a quiet testament to a purpose that we can only glimpse. Were they built to commemorate an event, to honor a spirit of the land? We can speculate, but the silence itself is part of the story. What unites all these discoveries, the burials, the artifacts, and even the empty spaces is the immense care with which these places were created and treated. These were not haphazard piles of dirt. They were feats of engineering and communal effort, often built over many stages and generations. The layers within the mounds show deliberate capping with different colored soils, creating a kind of internal stratigraphy that was meaningful to the builders. The placement of every object, every individual, was intentional. This profound respect is something we, in the present, must continue. Archaeologists work with the utmost care, knowing that excavation is behits naturae, a destructive process. Once a site is dug, it can never be put back exactly as it was. That's why detailed notes, drawings, Photographs and modern techniques like ground-penetrating radar are so vital. They allow us to preserve the information, even as we disturb the ground. These mounds are sacred places. For many indigenous communities today, they are the resting places of their ancestors. They are not just archaeological sites. They are cemeteries, places of heritage and spiritual significance. The conversation about what lies beneath the mounds is not just an academic one. It's a human one, connecting us to both the distant past and the living descendants of these ancient cultures. So, as we conclude our look beneath the mounds, we are left with a picture of incredible complexity. These monuments were tombs, yes, but they were also stages for ceremony, markers of identity, and vaults of artistic expression. Some hold the remains of revered leaders, others the collective spirit of a community, and some hold only the soil they were made from, their purpose, a silent mystery that continues to inspire awe and wonder. They remind us that the past is not a simple story, but a rich, layered, and deeply human tapestry. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. The story of these mounds is far from over, and with every new discovery, another piece of the puzzle falls into place. If you found this journey as fascinating as I do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into our shared human story. We'll see ya in the next chapter. Hello and welcome back to our journey through time. Today, in our 9th chapter, Stories in the Soil, we move beyond the physical artifacts and dig into something just as enduring, the power of memory and oral tradition. For centuries, long before archaeologists began their work, Native American communities have held the stories of these mounds in their hearts and in their spoken histories. These aren't just tales. They are living connections to ancestors, spirits, and the very fabric of creation. When we look at a great earthen mound, we might see a historical monument or an archaeological puzzle. But through the lens of indigenous knowledge, these are sacred places, pulsating with the energy of those who came before. Oral traditions, passed down with incredible care from generation to generation, are the keys that unlock the true meaning of these landscapes. They are the original guidebooks, explaining not just how the mounds were built, but why. Take, for example, the Naneyeya Mound in Mississippi, a site of immense importance to the Choctaw people. Their oral history doesn't just mention this mound, it places it at the very center of their origin story. For the Choctaw, Naniyuja is the mother mound, the sacred earthwork from which their people first emerged into the world. It's not simply a pile of dirt. It's the womb of their nation. This story transforms the mound from a static object into a dynamic, life-giving source of identity and belonging. It's a physical anchor for their entire worldview, a place where the spiritual and material worlds meet. This connection isn't unique to the Choctaw. Across North America, countless tribes have similar stories tied to specific mounds. For many, these sites are seen as the final resting places of revered ancestors. The act of building a mound was a communal expression of grief, respect, and a desire to create a lasting memorial. The stories remember these ancestors not as distant figures, but as active participants in the lives of their descendants. They are guardians, watching over their people from these high places. The mounds, then, become portals places to communicate with the spirit world, to seek guidance, and to honor the lineage that gives the community its strength. Think about it this way. For us, a family photo album connects us to our grandparents and great-grandparents. For many Native communities, these mounds serve a similar, but far more profound, purpose. They are three-dimensional family albums, built into the landscape itself. The stories associated with them are the captions, explaining who is buried there, the great deeds they accomplished, and the lessons their lives offer. By retelling these stories, each new generation reaffirms its bond with the past and its responsibilities to the future. Creation stories are also deeply interwoven with these earthen structures. Some traditions speak of a great serpent or other powerful spirit beings who shaped the land, leaving mounds in their wake as evidence of their passage. The famous Serpent Mound in Ohio is a breathtaking example. While archaeologists debate its exact purpose, local oral traditions have long identified it as a sacred effigy, a depiction of a powerful spiritual entity. These stories don't just explain the mound's shape. They infuse it with cosmic significance, linking it to the fundamental forces of the universe, the balance of the seasons, and the cycles of life and death. To view the Serpent Mound through this lens is to see a story about creation itself written upon the earth. Furthermore, oral traditions often contain practical knowledge disguised as myth or legend. Stories might subtly encode information about a mound's purpose. Was it a ceremonial center? A defensive structure? A celestial observatory? A story about a sky being descending upon a particular mound might be a way of remembering that the site was aligned with a specific astronomical event, like the solstice or the rising of a particular star. These narratives were sophisticated ways of storing and transmitting complex information in a pre-literate society. They were a science and a history, a religion and a geography, all rolled into one. The tragedy is that for a long time, this indigenous knowledge was dismissed or ignored by Western scholars. Archaeologists and historians focused on what they could dig up and measure, often overlooked the rich tapestry of oral history that surrounded these sites. They saw empty mounds, while native people saw places brimming with stories, spirits, and significance. This led to a profound disconnect, where the very people whose ancestors built and revered these places were often excluded from the conversation about them. Thankfully, that is beginning to change. There is a growing recognition that archaeology and oral tradition are not competing narratives, but complementary ones. When you place an artifact discovered in a mound alongside the story that has been told about that mound for 1,000 years, a much richer, more complete picture emerges. The what from archaeology combines with the why from oral tradition. This collaboration allows us to understand these sites not just as relics of a lost world, but as living cultural landscapes that continue to hold immense power and meaning for indigenous peoples today. So, as we continue our exploration, let's remember that the earth itself is a library, and the mounds are its books. But the words, the stories that give them meaning, are carried in the memories and voices of the descendants of those who built them. These oral traditions are not myths in the sense of being untrue. They are a different kind of truth of memory, of spirit, and of an unbreakable connection to a sacred past. The soil holds the bones, but the stories hold the soul. Thank you so much for joining me on this chapter of our journey. It's a privilege to share these perspectives with you. If this exploration into history and memory resonates with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories from our shared past. We'll see you next time. Welcome back, everyone, to our ongoing exploration of these incredible ancient mysteries. In our last chapter, we delved deep into the local significance and astronomical alignments of this remarkable site. But today, in Chapter 10, we're zooming out. We're going to expand our perspective and look for connections across the continent, asking a fascinating question. Was this place part of a much larger, shared cultural tapestry? To do that, we need to talk about serpents. Let's journey hundreds of miles away to the rolling hills of southern Ohio. Here, nestled in a quiet landscape, lies one of the most famous and enigmatic earthworks in the world, the Great Serpent Mound. This colossal effigy, stretching over 1,300 feet, depicts a massive, undulating serpent, its head appearing to swallow an oval shape, often interpreted as an egg or the sun. It's an awe-inspiring sight, a testament to the sophisticated engineering and profound spiritual beliefs of its builders, the ancient peoples of North America. The Great Serpent Mound isn't just a random shape. It's a masterpiece of celestial alignment and sacred geometry. Researchers have discovered that key points along the serpent's body aligned with significant solar and lunar events, like the summer and winter solstices. The head of the serpent, for instance, points directly toward the sunset on the summer solstice. This isn't a coincidence. It tells us that its creators were keen observers of the sky, embedding their knowledge of cosmic cycles directly into the earth. The serpent, for them, was likely a powerful symbol tied to the rhythms of nature, the sun, and the changing seasons. Now, let's bring our focus back to the site we've been studying. As we've seen, serpent imagery is a recurring theme here as well, etched into stone and shaped into the very landscape. But are these just isolated instances of a common symbol, or is there a deeper connection? When we place the layout of our site alongside the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio, some striking similarities begin to emerge. Both sites utilize natural topography, building upon and enhancing the existing features of the land. They are not just built asterisk on asterisk the landscape, but asterisk with asterisk. Look at the way the serpent here coils around this central hill. Much like the Great Serpent Mound follows the contours of its own ridge. This suggests a shared understanding of sacred space, a belief that certain places on Earth hold a special power and are fitting canvases for monumental expressions of faith. Both sites also appear to be oriented with cosmic events. Just as the Ohio Serpent marks the solstices, we've found potential alignments here that point to similar celestial markers. Is it possible that these distant communities were part of a shared network of knowledge, an ancient tradition of sacred architecture that spanned vast territories? The serpent itself is a powerful, cross-cultural symbol. In many ancient traditions around the world, serpents represent themes of renewal, transformation, and rebirth. Due to their ability to shed their skin, they're often seen as mediators between the underworld, the earth, and the heavens. They are creatures of the earth, yet their winding form can mimic the flow of rivers or even the path of the sun across the sky. So, when we see this potent symbol appear in monumental earthworks, hundreds of miles apart, it strongly suggests a shared ideological foundation. These weren't just decorative motifs, they were central to a complex worldview. Think about the sheer effort involved. We're not talking about small carvings. We're talking about moving tons of earth, shaping the land on a massive scale, all without modern machinery. This level of communal effort requires a powerful, unifying belief system. A story so important, so central to their identity, that entire communities would dedicate generations to its physical manifestation. The serpent, it seems, was part of that essential story. Whether it represented a creation myth, a cosmological map, or a deity, its importance was undeniable. Could these sites have been pilgrimage destinations? Imagine people traveling vast distances, following trade routes that were also conduits for ideas, stories, and rituals. A traveler from one region might visit another, sharing knowledge of construction techniques or astronomical observations. Over time, this could lead to the development of a standard model for sacred sites, with local variations, of course, but based on a common set of principles. The serpent effigy might have been the signature of this widespread cultural or religious movement. The specific shape of the serpent swallowing the egg or sun at the Ohio Mound is particularly intriguing. This powerful image could symbolize a variety of concepts: the cycle of day and night, the struggle between cosmic forces, the moment of creation, or even a solar eclipse. While our site here doesn't have the exact same swallowing feature, the oval shapes and circular earthworks found in close proximity to our serpent effigy might be a related concept. Perhaps they represent the same idea, just expressed in a slightly different artistic dialect. The core message to the serpent's interaction with a celestial or primordial object could very well be the same. This serpent connection challenges us to think beyond regional boundaries. Instead of viewing each ancient site in isolation, we can start to see them as nodes in a vast, interconnected network of belief. This wasn't a world of isolated tribes, but a continent teeming with interaction, exchange, and shared spiritual quests. The serpent, winding its way across the landscape of ancient America, may be the most tangible clue we have to this lost, continent-wide conversation. It's a silent testament to a shared understanding of the cosmos and our place within it. What do you think? Is it a coincidence, or are we looking at evidence of a forgotten, unified culture? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Join us next time as we explore the tools and techniques that might have been used to construct these incredible earthworks. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed this exploration and want to uncover more ancient mysteries with us, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. Your support makes all of this possible. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a sense of wonder? A feeling of connection to something vast and ancient? Well, you're not alone. For thousands of years, our ancestors did the same thing, but for them, the sky wasn't just a beautiful canvas. It was a clock, a calendar, and a sacred map. Today, we re-journeying back in time to explore a fascinating mystery, the connection between the monumental earthworks of ancient peoples and the celestial events that govern their world. Welcome to a skyward orientation. All across the globe, from the great pyramids of Egypt to the stone circles of Europe, ancient civilizations built incredible structures that mirrored the heavens. But you don't have to travel that far to see this celestial architecture in action. Right here in North America, countless mounds, built by indigenous peoples over centuries, stand as silent testaments to a deep understanding of the cosmos. These aren't just random hills of Earth. Many are precisely engineered to align with the sun, the moon, and the stars. Let's start with the most significant celestial event for many ancient cultures. The winter solstice marks the shortest day of the year, a time of death and rebirth in nature. The summer solstice, the longest day, represents the peak of light and life. For agricultural societies, tracking these moments was crucial. It told them when to plant and when to harvest. It was a matter of survival. So, how did they do it without modern technology? They used their monuments. Take, for example, the incredible Cahokia, near Moderanda, St. Louis. This sprawling ancient city was once the largest north of Mexico. Within it, archaeologists have discovered what they call woodhenge, a series of large, circular arrangements of wooden posts. At certain times of the year, a priest or leader standing at the center of the circle would see the sun rise directly over a specific post, marking the solstices, and imagine the power and ceremony of that moment. The entire community witnessing the sun aligning perfectly with their sacred architecture. It was a powerful confirmation that their world was in order, in sync with the cosmos. Another stunning example is the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio. This 1,000-foot-long effigy mound, shaped like a writhing snake, is a masterpiece of landscape art. For years, its purpose was a mystery, but modern research suggests its head aligns perfectly with the sunset on the summer solstice. Picture it. As the longest day of the year ends, the sun appears to be swallowed by the great serpent. What a dramatic and powerful symbol. This wasn't just a calendar. It was a story told on the land itself, a narrative of cosmic power and earthly significance. It's not just the sun, either. The equinoxes, the 2 days of the year when day and night are of equal length, were also vital. These events, marking the start of spring and autumn, were tracked with similar precision. At the Hopewell Earthworks in Ohio, a massive complex of geometric mounds, certain gateways and sight lines, align with the equinox sunrises. It's like the entire landscape was designed as a giant observatory, a sacred space where the community could gather to mark the changing seasons and reaffirm their connection to the cycles of the universe. These alignments weren't just practical, they were deeply spiritual. The sun's journey was often tied to the life cycle of humans and the journey of the soul. The sunrise at the winter solstice, for instance, could symbolize a new beginning, the rebirth of light and hope in the darkest time of year. By building mounds that captured these moments, ancient peoples weren't just observing the sky, they were participating in its sacred drama. Their structures became portals, connecting the earthly realm with the celestial one. Now let's turn our gaze from the sun to the moon. The moon, with its ever-changing phases and its 18.6-year cycle, known as the lunar standstill, presented a more complex challenge. Yet, evidence suggests that ancient astronomers were more than up to the task. The Newark Earthworks in Ohio, part of the Hopewell Cultural Complex, is a prime example. Its massive octagon earthworks are a marvel of geometric precision. Researchers have discovered that its sight lines align perfectly with the northernmost and southernmost rising and setting points of the moon during its long cycle. This is an incredible feat of observational astronomy and engineering. To track the moon's subtle movements over nearly 2 decades, and then encode that knowledge into the very landscape required generations of dedicated scholars. It shows a commitment to long-term observation that is simply staggering. Why was the moon so important? The moon governs the tides and marks the passage of months. For many cultures, it was a powerful female symbol, balancing the male energy of the sun. The ability to predict its movements would have endowed the leaders and shamans with immense prestige and authority. It demonstrated a mastery over the rhythms of the cosmos, reinforcing their special connection to the spiritual world. These lunar alignments transformed the earthworks from simple ceremonial centers into sophisticated astronomical computers, built of earth and sacred knowledge. Beyond the sun and moon, there's the glittering expanse of the stars. Did ancient mound builders also align their structures with constellations? This is a more challenging area of study, because stars shift their positions over centuries due to a phenomenon called precession. However, compelling theories are emerging. Some researchers have proposed that the pattern of mounds at Cahokia mirrors the constellation we know as Orion. 3 largest mounds, including the colossal Monk's Mound, seem to match the position and brightness of the 3 stars in Orion's belt. In many cultures around the world, Orion is associated with a creator figure or a celestial hunter. If this theory is correct, the builders of Cahokia may have been recreating a piece of the sky on Earth, building a sacred landscape that mirrored their celestial mythology. Similarly, the Pleiades star cluster, also known as the Seven Sisters, was incredibly significant to many indigenous American groups. Its appearance in the sky at certain times of the year often signaled the start of ceremonies or the time to plant crops. Some mounds and villages appear to be oriented or laid out in patterns that reflect the Pleiades. Bedoing these, they were literally grounding their celestial stories, making the myths a tangible part of their daily lives. What does all of this tell us? It reveals that the people who built these mounds possessed a profound and sophisticated knowledge of the cosmos. This was not primitive superstition. It was a science, woven into the fabric of their spirituality and society. They were keen observers, patient mathematicians, and brilliant engineers. They created a harmonious world where the movements of the heavens were reflected in the structures they built on Earth. These mounds were more than just burial places or ceremonial platforms. They were clocks, calendars, and conduits to the divine. There were places where the community could come together to witness the grand, predictable cycles of the universe and feel their place within it. In a world without written language, the landscape itself became the sacred text, and the alignments were its most important passages. As we stand in awe of these ancient earthworks today, we are connecting with a legacy of skyward orientation that spans millennia. We're reminded that, for most of human history, we have looked to the sky for answers, for meaning, and for a sense of order in a chaotic world. The next time you see a solstice sunset or gaze up at Orion's belt, remember the ancient astronomers of North America. They saw the same sky, and they built their world to honor it, leaving behind a timeless message written in earth and aligned with the stars. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time and space. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more explorations into the mysteries of our past. Let me know in the comments which alignment you find most amazing. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we step beyond the stones and into the minds of the builders. In this chapter, we explore their worldview, a perspective deeply woven into the very fabric of the world around them. Forget our modern separation between humanity and nature. For these ancient people, there was no such division. They were an inseparable part of a living, breathing landscape. Imagine waking not to an alarm clock, but to the first rays of dawn illuminating a sacred peak. The same peak your ancestors watched for millennia. Your world wasn't just a collection of resources. It was a community of beings. The earth beneath your feet wasn't just soil. It was a nurturing mother, giving life and receiving the departed back into her embrace. The sky above wasn't an empty void, but a vast, celestial ocean, home to the sun, the moon, and T-stars, powerful entities that dictated the rhythms of life, the turning of seasons, and the timing of rituals. Water was the lifeblood of this world. Rivers and springs weren't just sources of hydration, they were veins of the earth, conduits of spiritual energy, and gateways to the underworld. To drink from a spring was to receive a blessing from the land itself. To cross a river might have been seen as a journey between different spiritual states, a transition that required respect and perhaps even a small offering. And then there were the animals. They weren't just fauna. They were akin, spirit guides, and powerful symbols. The deer, with its majestic antlers reaching for the sky like the branches of a tree, could represent the connection between earth and heaven. The bear, hibernating in the dark earth and re-emerging in the spring, might symbolize rebirth and the cyclical nature of life. The salmon, fighting its way upstream to spawn, was a powerful emblem of determination, sacrifice, and the continuation of the ancestral line. These weren't just poetic metaphors. They were fundamental truths. The world was alive with spirits, a web of interconnectedness where every action had a ripple effect. Building a stone circle wasn't just an engineering feat. It was a dialogue with the cosmos. It was about aligning their human world with the greater, sacred geometry of the universe. The stones were anchors, points of contact where the energies of the earth, the sky, and the spirit world could meet. When they carved spirals onto a rock, they might have been tracing the path of the sun, the flow of water, or the journey of the soul. These symbols were their language, a way to communicate with the powerful forces that govern their existence. They saw themselves not as masters of the land, but as its custodians, its children. Their lives were a continuous ceremony, a dance of respect and reciprocity with the living world. Think about the placement of their monuments. They are often situated in breathtaking locations with commanding views, or nestled in secluded valleys near sources of water. This wasn't for aesthetic reasons alone. These places were chosen because they were already sacred. They were points of power, places where the veil between worlds felt thin. By building there, they were amplifying that power, creating a permanent space for community, for ritual, and for communion with the divine. This worldview shaped every aspect of their lives, from the food they ate to the stories they told around the fire. The changing seasons were a grand drama played out by celestial gods. A hunt was a sacred exchange with the spirit of the animal. Life was a single thread in a magnificent, cosmic tapestry that stretched back to the dawn of time and forward into eternity. This intimate connection is something we've largely lost. We see a forest and think of timber. They saw a gathering of ancient beings. We see a mountain and think of minerals. They saw a sleeping giant. To understand them is to try and re-enchant our own world, to see with their eyes for a moment. This was a world where earth, sky, water, and animal spirits were not separate entities, but different voices in a single, harmonious chorus. The builders saw themselves as part of this chorus, their role being to listen, to learn, and to add their own verse in stone and ritual, ensuring the great song continued for generations to come. Thank you for joining us on this exploration into the ancient mind. If you've enjoyed this journey, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the past. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep wondering. Hello and welcome back to our journey through the history of the ancient mounds. In our last chapter, we explored the rich cultures that built these magnificent earthworks. Today, we're fast-forwarding to the 19th century, a time of massive change across the American landscape. As European settlers pushed westward, they came face to face with these mysterious structures, sparking a debate that would last for generations. This is the story of their rediscovery. Imagine being a settler in the early 1800s, clearing land for a new farm in the Ohio Valley. You're cutting down trees, pulling up stumps, and suddenly, you see it. A perfectly symmetrical cone of earth, or a massive, flat-topped pyramid, or even an earthen wall stretching for miles. What would you think? For many, these mounds were simply obstacles. The land was fertile, and the most pressing need was to plant crops and build homes. In this rush for survival and progress, countless mounds were plowed over, leveled, and sadly, lost to history. They were often dismissed as natural hills or simply inconvenient lumps in the landscape, their archaeological significance completely unrecognized. This attitude was fueled by a widespread belief at the time known as the Mound Builder myth. Many settlers and early scholars simply could not accept that the ancestors of the Native Americans they were encountering could have created such sophisticated and monumental works. Instead, they invented elaborate theories, attributing the mounds to a lost race of giants, Vikings, ancient Egyptians, or even the 10 lost tribes of Israel. This thinking, while imaginative, served a convenient purpose. It disconnected contemporary Native Americans from their own heritage and justified the seizure of their ancestral lands. If the mounds were built by some long-vanished, non-native civilization, then the current inhabitants had no special claim to them. But not everyone was so quick to dismiss or destroy. Alongside the plows and prejudices, there were voices of curiosity and reason. A new breed of thinkers, gentlemen scholars, and amateur archaeologists began to take a keen interest in these earthen monuments. They saw not just obstacles, but profound historical mysteries waiting to be unraveled. One of the most important early figures was Caleb Atwater, a postmaster from Circleville, Ohio. In 1820, he published a detailed survey in Archaeologia Americana, the first major publication of the American Antiquarian Society. Atwater meticulously mapped the incredible mound complexes at Circleville and across Ohio, documenting their shapes, sizes, and orientations. He carefully excavated a few, describing the artifacts found within. While even he subscribed to the lost race theory, his methodical approach to recording the sites before they vanished was pioneering. He knew he was in a race against time, and his work preserved a vital snapshot of what was being lost. Another critical duo emerged a few decades later. Ephraim Squire, a newspaper editor, and Edwin Davis, a physician. Together, they embarked on an epic survey of mound sites throughout the Mississippi and Ohio valleys. They weren't just casual observers, they were systematic research. They created incredibly precise maps, detailed cross-sections of mounds, and beautiful illustrations of the artifacts. They uncovered their monumental work. Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, published in 1848 by the newly formed Smithsonian Institution, became the foundational text of American archaeology. It was the first publication by the Smithsonian, which shows just how important this research was considered. Squire and Davis documented over 200 sites, many of which no longer exist. Their book was a sensation, bringing the scale and complexity of the mound-building cultures to a national and even international audience. While they too were uncertain about the builders' identities, their rigorous documentation provided the raw data that future generations would use to solve the mystery. These preservationists and early researchers faced an uphill battle. They were often working with their own limited funds, traveling by horse and buggy, and trying to convince landowners to let them survey before the plows came through. Think of the dedication it took to stand in a field, sketchbook and measuring tape in hand, painstakingly drawing a massive earthwork while knowing it might be gone by the next season. They weren't just documenting dirt, they were preserving a library of human history written on the land itself. Men like William Pigeon, a traveling antiquary, spent years wandering the Midwest, interviewing settlers and Native Americans alike, trying to piece together the oral histories and legends associated with the mounds. Though some of his interpretations were fanciful, his dedication to gathering first-hand accounts was invaluable. These contrasting attitudes, destruction for progress versus preservation for knowledge, define the 19th century encounter with the mounds. On one hand, you had the relentless push of manifest destiny, which saw the land as something to be tamed and exploited, with little regard for the deep history it held. The mounds were just raw material, dirt to be moved to make way for roads, farms, and towns. The tragic leveling of the Great Mound at the center of Circleville, Ohio, to impose a standard grid plan on the town, is a perfect example of this mindset. An ancient, sacred circular earthwork was literally forced into a square peg. On the other hand, you had a growing scientific and historical consciousness. The work of Atwater, Squire, Davis, and others like them planted the seeds for the modern field of archaeology in America. They demonstrated that these sites weren't just random hills, but complex, intentional constructions that held clues to a forgotten past. Their maps and reports became a clarion call, alerting the public that a precious and irreplaceable part of America's heritage was vanishing before their very eyes. This tension between destruction and documentation set the stage for the next phase of the story, the scientific quest to finally answer the question that loomed over everything. Who were the mound builders? That's a story for our next chapter. We'll see how, towards the end of the 19th century, rigorous scientific investigation, led by figures from the Bureau of Ethnology, would finally dismantle the mound builder myth and rightfully return the credit for these incredible achievements to the ancestors of Native Americans. The 19th century was a critical and often tragic chapter in the history of the mounds. It was a period of great loss, but also of great discovery. It reminds us that the way we see the past is shaped by the values of the present. The rediscovery by settlers was a complex mix of ignorance, prejudice, curiosity, and scientific awakening. Thanks for joining us for this part of the story. If you're finding this journey through history as fascinating as I am, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel so you won't miss what's coming next. We'll see you in the next chapter. Have you ever stood in awe of a massive ancient structure and wondered, who built this? For centuries, that was the exact question people in North America asked when they encountered the thousands of monumental earthworks, or mounds, scattered across the landscape. Today, we know these incredible sites were built by the ancestors of modern Native Americans. But the path to that understanding was a long and winding one, filled with wild theories, heated debates, and some seriously mistaken ideas. Let us dig into the fascinating story of early archaeology and the mystery of the Mound Builders. When European settlers first moved westward across North America, they were stunned by what they found. From the Great Lakes down to the Gulf of Mexico, the land was dotted with enormous mounds. Some were simple, conical shapes, others were massive, flat-topped pyramids, and some were even sculpted into the forms of animals, like the famous Serpent Mound in Ohio. These weren't just small hills. They were complex engineering feats. Cahokia, near modern-day St. Louis, was a bustling city with a population larger than London at the time, centered around a terraced mound taller than a 10-story building. The sheer scale and complexity of these sites baffled the settlers. Looking at the local Native American tribes, who had been devastated by disease and displacement, they couldn't imagine them building such sophisticated structures. This led to a pervasive and convenient myth. The myth of the Mound Builders. The idea was that a mysterious, lost race, perhaps Vikings, ancient Egyptians, Israelites, or even people from the mythical city of Atlantis, had built these mounds and then vanished, replaced by the savage Native Americans. This theory was not only racist, but also politically useful. If Native Americans weren't the original builders of these great works, it made it easier to justify taking their land. The narrative suggested they were merely later arrivals, not the inheritors of a magnificent civilization. This lost race theory became incredibly popular in the 18th and 19th centuries. Books were written, poems were composed, and amateur archaeologists, or antiquarians, set out to prove it. One of the most prominent figures was a man named Caleb Att. In the 1820s, he meticulously surveyed and mapped many of the mounds in Ohio. While his fieldwork was impressive for its time, his conclusions were stuck in the prevailing myth. He argued that the artifacts and construction techniques were too advanced for Native Americans and must have come from a more civilized people, perhaps from Asia. Another famous duo, Ephraim Squire and Edwin Davis, conducted even more extensive surveys in the 1840s for the newly founded Smithsonian Institution. Their book, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, was a landmark publication. It was filled with detailed maps and descriptions of hundreds of mound sites. It was a foundational text for American archaeology. However, despite their scientific approach to mapping, they too fell into the trap of the mound builder myth. They carefully separated the mound builder artifacts from contemporary Native American items, concluding they were two different peoples. They believed a sophisticated agricultural society had been overrun by warlike, nomadic tribes, the ancestors of modern Native Americans. But not everyone was convinced. A few dissenting voices started to emerge, people who actually listened to Native Americans. For generations, tribes like the Choctaw, Cherokee, and Creek had passed down oral traditions that explicitly stated their ancestors had built the mounds. Their stories described the ceremonies performed on them, the leaders buried within them, and the cities that surrounded them. But in a society that dismissed Native people as primitive, these traditions were largely ignored by the academic establishment. The turning point finally came in the late 19th century, thanks to a man named Cyrus Thomas. He was an entomologist, a scientist who studied insects, but he was put in charge of the Smithsonian's Division of Mound Exploration. Initially, Thomas himself was a believer in the lost race theory, but he was also a rigorous scientist. His boss at the Smithsonian, John Wesley Powell, geologist famous for exploring the Grand Canyon, tasked him with definitively solving the mound builder mystery once and for all. Over more than a decade, Thomas and his team embarked on a massive project. They excavated over 2,000 mound sites across the eastern United States. They didn't just dig for treasure. They meticulously documented the layers of soil, the types of burials, and the styles of pottery and tools they found. They compared the artifacts from deep within the mounds with the crafts still being made by modern Native American tribes in the southeast. And what they found was undeniable. The evidence was overwhelming. The skeletal remains found in the mounds were physically identical to modern Native Americans. The pottery, arrowheads, and ceremonial objects discovered deep inside the oldest layers showed clear stylistic connections to the crafts of living tribes. There was a continuous thread of culture, stretching from the ancient past right up to the present day. For example, historical accounts from early Spanish explorers describe southeastern tribes living in towns with mounds, temples, and plazas, a perfect match for the archaeological sites. In 1894, Cyrus Thomas published his monumental report. After years of exhaustive research, he declared with absolute certainty that the mounds were built by the ancestors of the present-day Native American tribes. He systematically debunked every single argument for a lost race. The so-called advanced artifacts, they were all well within the technological capabilities of native societies. The idea that they were a vanished people, it was pure fantasy, unsupported by a single shred of evidence. Thomas's report was a bombshell that effectively ended the scientific debate. It marked a major shift in American archaeology, moving it away from romantic speculation and toward a more scientific, evidence-based discipline. It finally gave academic validation to what Native Americans had been saying all along. These are our sacred places, built by our ancestors. The story of the Mound Builder myth is a powerful lesson. It shows how easily prejudice and political agendas can cloud scientific inquiry. It reminds us of the importance of listening to indigenous voices and respecting their oral traditions, which often hold keys to the past that archaeology alone cannot unlock. Today, archaeologists work in partnership with native tribes, combining scientific methods with traditional knowledge to gain a much richer, more accurate understanding of America's deep and complex history. The great mounds are no longer symbols of a lost race, but proud and enduring monuments to the ingenuity, spirituality, and resilience of Native American civilizations. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's a crucial story that deserves to be told. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what you think. We'll see you in the next video. Welcome back to our journey through the history of Effigy Mounds. In this chapter, we arrive at a pivotal moment, the hard-fought battle for preservation that ultimately saved these sacred landscapes for future generations. For over a century, these incredible earthworks faced a constant, looming threat. The relentless westward expansion of the United States brought with it settlers, farmers, and developers, all looking to tame the land. Too many, the mounds were seen not as sacred sites or archaeological treasures, but as inconvenient bumps in the terrain. Imagine the scene in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Farmers, eager to cultivate the rich soil of the Mississippi River Valley, plowed directly over countless mounds. Year after year, the distinct shapes of bears, birds, and other figures were gradually flattened, their outlines blurred and eventually erased from the landscape forever. Roads were cut through them, and towns expanded, consuming entire mound groups without a second thought. It is a heartbreaking reality that we lost an estimated 80% of all effigy mounds in Wisconsin alone to this kind of destruction. The very history embedded in the earth was being tilled into oblivion. But even in these early days, a few voices cried out for their protection. Archaeologists and concerned citizens, like Theodore Lewis and Alfred Hill, spent years surveying and documenting the mounds, racing against the plow. They knew they were witnessing the rapid disappearance of a unique cultural heritage. Their detailed maps and records, created in the late 1800s, are invaluable today. In many cases, their drawings are the only proof that certain mounds ever existed. These early preservationists planted a seed of awareness, arguing that these were not just random hills of dirt, but the deliberate, sacred creations of a past civilization. The idea of setting aside land specifically to protect these mounds began to gain traction. In the early 20th century, local and state historical societies started acquiring small parcels of land, but it was a piecemeal effort. unable to stop the widespread destruction. The real push for federal protection began in Iowa, championed by a passionate group of individuals who understood the national significance of the effigy mounds. One key figure was Charles R. Keyes, an archaeologist and professor at Cornell College. From the 1920s onward, he dedicated his life to studying and advocating for Iowa's archaeological sites. Keyes worked tirelessly alongside the Iowa State Historical Society and other local advocates. They recognized that the concentration of mounds along the Mississippi River, particularly the stunning Great Bear Mound Group, was a world-class cultural landscape that deserved the highest level of protection. They began lobbying state and federal officials, writing articles, giving lectures, and leading tours to raise public awareness. They argued that these mounds were just as important as the natural wonders being protected in places like Yellowstone or Yosemite. They were monuments, not of stone, but of earth, representing the spiritual life and worldview of the first peoples of this land. Their efforts faced significant hurdles. There was political opposition, a lack of funding, and a general public that was largely unaware of what was at stake. The Great Depression and World War II further delayed their progress as national priorities shifted elsewhere, but the advocates were persistent. They framed their argument carefully. This wasn't just about preserving ancient history. It was about honoring the ancestors of living Native American tribes and safeguarding a crucial piece of America's own story. The breakthrough came after the war. The momentum that had been building for decades finally crested. The advocates, armed with maps, archaeological data, and a powerful moral argument, made a compelling case to the federal government. They highlighted the unique character of the effigy mounds found almost nowhere else in the world and the imminent danger they faced from renewed post-war development and agriculture. They emphasized that without immediate federal intervention, this irreplaceable heritage would be lost forever. This intense, decades-long campaign finally paid off. On October 25, 1949, President Harry S. Truman signed Proclamation 2860, establishing Effigy Mounds National Monument. The proclamation set aside over 1,000 acres of land, specifically to preserve historic and prehistoric mounds and other features of scenic, scientific, and educational interest. This was a monumental victory. For the first time, a significant portion of this sacred landscape was placed under the protection of the National Park Service, ensuring its preservation for the American people and for all time. The creation of the National Monument was a turning point. It stopped the plows at the park's boundary. It meant that the remaining mounds within its borders would no longer be threatened by farming, logging, or construction. The land was finally recognized, not for its agricultural potential, but for its profound cultural and spiritual value. It became a place of remembrance, study, and reflection. The designation acknowledged that the mounds were not just archaeological curiosities, but a sacred legacy that connects the present to a deep and meaningful past. This act of preservation was more than just a legal designation. It was a statement. It declared that the story of the Mound Builders matters. It affirmed that the spiritual landscapes of indigenous peoples are a vital part of our collective national heritage. While countless mounds were tragically lost, the establishment of Effigy Mounds National Monument ensured that the heart of this ancient tradition would be saved, allowing the voices of the earth to continue to speak to us today. It stands as a testament to the power of perseverance and the enduring importance of protecting our shared history. Thank you so much for watching. The story of Effigy Mounds is a powerful reminder of what we can achieve when we fight for the places that matter. If you found this chapter meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into our shared past. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Join us next time as we explore the ongoing relationship between the monument and the descendant tribal nations. See you then. Sound of gentle footsteps on a gravel path. Birds chirping welcome back. After exploring the deep past, the stories etched in time, let's return to the present moment. Let's walk these trails together, right now. The air here at Effigy Mounds National Monument feels different, doesn't it? It's crisp, filled with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, the smell of life. Continuing its endless cycle, each step on this path feels like a connection. A bridge between our world and the one that existed here 1,000 years ago. The trail winds ahead, a ribbon of soil and rock through a sea of green. Sunlight dapples through the canopy, painting shifting patterns on the forest floor. It's quiet, but it's a living quiet. You can hear the rustle of a squirrel in the undergrowth, the distant call of a hawk circling high above, the gentle whisper of the wind through the oak and hickory trees. This isn't just a walk, it's a moving meditation. With every breath, you feel a little more centered, a little more present. The worries of the outside world seem to fade, replaced by a simple awareness of the here and now. As we climb, the path gets a little steeper. You can feel the effort in your legs, the rhythm of your own heartbeat. It's a good feeling, a reminder that we are a part of this landscape, not just observers of it. And then, the trees part, and we step out onto an overlook. The view is breathtaking. Below us, the Mississippi River stretches out like a vast, shimmering artery, its islands dotting the water like emeralds. This is the same view the Mound Builders saw. They stood here, on this very bluff, and looked out at the same timeless river. In this moment, standing, the centuries between us feel paper. You can almost feel their presence, a silent acknowledgement across the ages. We're walking along the Fireport Trail now, and here, nestled among the trees, are the mounds themselves. There's the Great Bear Mound, its form still clear after a millennium. It's not just a pile of earth. It's a story, a symbol, a sacred place. Seeing it in person is a humbling experience. You realize the immense effort, the shared belief, and the deep spiritual connection that went into its creation. We walk around it with reverence, careful not to disturb this hallowed ground. There's a profound sense of peace here, a stillness that seems to emanate from the earth itself. It invites quiet reflection. What did they believe? What were their hopes? Their fears? We can only wonder. And in that wondering, we find a connection to our own humanity. Further along, we encounter a line of conical and linear mounds. Each one is a silent sentinel, guarding the secrets of the past. They flow with the natural contours of the ridge, so perfectly integrated into the landscape that they feel like they grew here. It makes you think about our own modern world, how often we impose ourselves upon nature rather than working in harmony with it. These mounds are a powerful lesson in subtlety and respect for the land. They are a testament to a culture that understood its place within the intricate web of life. Now, let's find a quiet spot to sit for a moment. There's a bench here, overlooking a quiet valley. Let's just be still. Listen. The sound of the wind is like a soft chant, carrying whispers from the past. Look at the way the light filters through the leaves, the dance of shadows on the ground. This is what it means to be truly present. In our fast-paced world, we rarely afford ourselves these moments of simple, quiet observation. But here, it feels essential. It's in these moments of stillness that we can truly process what we've seen, what we've felt. This place isn't just a historical site. It's a sanctuary. It's a place to reconnect not just with history, but with ourselves and with the natural world that sustains us all. This land holds memories. It remembers the ceremonies, the changing of the seasons, the generations of people who called this bluff-top home. Walking here, you become part of that memory, a fleeting but significant thread in its long and continuing story. You feel a sense of gratitude for the people who built these mounds, for those who have worked to preserve them, and for the simple, profound beauty of this place. It's a reminder that we are all stewards of the past, and we have a responsibility to protect these sacred landscapes for the generations who will walk these same trails long after we are gone. As our walk nears its end and we start heading back down the trail, the feeling isn't one of departure, but of carrying something with us. The peace of the forest, the majesty of the river view, the quiet dignity of the mounds, these things become a part of you. This visit isn't just about learning facts and dates. It's about experiencing a feeling, a connection that transcends time. It's a reminder that beneath the surface of our busy lives, there is a deeper, quieter current that connects us all. This place helps you find it. Thank you for walking these trails with me today, for sharing in this moment of quiet reflection. It's been an honor to explore this incredible place with you. If you've enjoyed this journey, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories like this. Until next time, may you find peace and connection in the world around you. Welcome back to our journey through the history of the Mound Builders. In our final chapter, we step away from the archaeological digs and historical texts to listen to the voices that matter most today. The voices of the descendants. For centuries, the narrative surrounding these magnificent earthworks was told by others, but these mounds were never abandoned in spirit. They have always been, and continue to be, sacred, living parts of a culture that endures. Today, we re-honor to share the modern perspectives of Native American tribes who trace their ancestry back to the mound-building civilizations. For many of us, these mounds might look like silent hills, remnants of a lost world. But for tribes like the Ho-Chunk Nation, the Iowa tribe, and the Ojibwe, these are not relics. They are active, sacred sites, imbued with the spirits of their ancestors and connected to their creation stories and ceremonies. They are places of reverence, of pilgrimage, and of profound spiritual connection. The earth itself holds memory, and these mounds are libraries of cultural and spiritual knowledge, passed down not through books, but through oral traditions, ceremonies, and a deep, intrinsic understanding of the land. Let's start with the Ho-Chunk Nation, whose ancestral lands cover a vast area of the Midwest, including many significant mound sites in Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa. For the Ho-Chunk, these mounds are inextricably linked to their clan system and cosmology. Many mounds, especially the Effigy Mounds, shaped like birds, bears, and other animals, represent their clans. They are not just burial places. They are markers of identity, territorial claims, and spiritual power. A clan member seeing a bear mound, for example, feels a direct connection to their lineage and their place in the world. Elder accounts and oral traditions speak of these mounds as places where life and death intersect, where ceremonies were conducted to ensure the balance of the world. They are living, breathing entities. To disturb a mound is not just to disturb a grave. It is to sever a connection, to disrupt the spiritual balance that has been maintained for generations. Today, the Ho-Chunk Nation is deeply involved in the preservation of these sites, working tirelessly to protect them from development and desecration, ensuring that future generations can continue to learn from them and honor the ancestors who rest there. Similarly, the Iowa tribe, or Iowa, whose name is carried by a state filled with these ancient earthworks, holds a deep reverence for the mounds. Their oral traditions tell of their long migration to the lands they now call home, and these mounds are part of that story. They are landmarks on a historical and spiritual journey. For the Iowa, the mounds are direct links to their ancestors, the ones who walked the land before them. They are places to go for guidance, to offer prayers, and to remember the promises and responsibilities passed down through the ages. Imagine knowing that your many times great-grandparents built these structures with their own hands, infusing them with their beliefs and hopes for the future. That's the connection the Iowa people feel. It's a tangible link to a past that is very much alive in their present. Protecting these sites is a sacred duty, a way of honoring the sacrifices and wisdom of those who came before and ensuring that their cultural identity remains strong and vibrant. Now, let's turn to the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe people. Their traditional stories and spiritual beliefs are woven into the landscape of the Great Lakes region, a land rich with ancient mounds. For the Ojibwe, the earth itself is sacred, a living being. The mounds are considered special points of spiritual power on the body of Mother Earth. They are often associated with creation stories, celestial events, and the intricate minutiae or wild rice culture that has sustained them for millennia. Some mounds are seen as places where powerful spirits dwell, or where important healing ceremonies took place. The teachings of the Maidwiwin, the Grand Medicine Society of the Ojibwe, are deeply connected to the earth and the knowledge it holds. The mounds are part of this sacred geography. Visiting them is a spiritual act, a way to communicate with the spirit world and to reaffirm one's place within the cosmos. The ongoing efforts by Ojibwe communities to protect burial mounds from disruption and to repatriate ancestral remains and sacred objects from museums are powerful testaments to the belief that these sites and the ancestors within them must be treated with the utmost respect. One of the most powerful themes we hear from all these tribes is the concept of the mounds as living entities. Lance Foster, a member of the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, has spoken eloquently about how these mounds are not just static monuments. They change with the seasons. They are home to plants and animals, and they are part of a dynamic ecosystem. This perspective contrasts sharply with the purely archaeological view, which can sometimes treat sites as sterile data points. For indigenous peoples, a mound is part of a living landscape. The plants that grow on it may be traditional medicines. The animals that burrow into it are part of the interconnected web of life. This holistic view emphasizes a relationship with the mounds, not just an observation of them. It's a relationship of reciprocity and respect. Another crucial point is the continuity of culture. The narrative of a vanished race of mound builders was a convenient myth for early settlers, as it erased the claims of the living native peoples they were displacing. But the descendants never vanished. They adapted, they survived, and they carried their cultures forward. The ceremonies may have changed, the languages may have evolved, but the core spiritual connection to these ancestral places remains unbroken. When a Ho-Chunk elder prays at a mound, they are continuing a tradition thousands of years old. When an Iowa family teaches their children about their ancestors who built these earthworks, they are ensuring their culture's survival. When an Ojibwe community fights to protect a sacred site from being paved over for a highway, they are asserting their rights and their enduring presence on the land. This brings us to the vital work of tribal historic preservation offices, or TH. These departments, run by the tribes themselves, are on the front lines of protecting these sacred sites. They consult with federal and state agencies on development projects, conduct their own archaeological research informed by cultural knowledge, and work to educate the public. They are reclaiming the narrative, ensuring that the story of the mounds is told from the perspective of the people whose ancestors built them. Their work is a powerful act of sovereignty and cultural revitalization. They are not just preserving the past, they are building a future where their cultural heritage is respected and celebrated. So, what can we, as visitors and admirers of these sites, learn from these perspectives? First and foremost, it's a call for respect. When we visit a mound site, we are not just in a park or a historical landmark. We are in a place of worship, a cemetery, and a cultural center for living communities. We should tread lightly, stay on designated paths, and never remove anything from the site. We are guests in a sacred space. Second, it's an invitation to listen. We must seek out and amplify the voices of the descendants. Read books by native authors, watch documentaries featuring their perspectives, and support the work of tribal historic preservation offices. By doing so, we move beyond the outdated and often inaccurate narratives of the past and embrace a more complete and respectful understanding. The story of the mound builders doesn't end with the last basket of earth placed on a mound thousands of years ago. The story is alive today in the songs, ceremonies, and languages of the Ho-Chunk, the Iowa, the Ojibwe, and dozens of other tribes. The mounds are not silent tombs of a lost civilization. They are vibrant, sacred plazas resonating with the voices of the ancestors and the enduring spirit of their descendants. Hearing these voices is the final, and most important, step in truly understanding the incredible legacy of the mound builders. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey. It has been a privilege to explore this rich and complex history with all of you. If this series has moved you or taught you something new, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue to tell these important stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. Have you ever wondered what happens when ancient stories meet modern science? It's like putting together a puzzle where some pieces are thousands of years old, passed down through generations, and others are uncovered from the earth with the latest technology. Today, we're diving into a fascinating world where archaeology and indigenous oral tradition are no longer seen as separate, but as powerful partners in revealing the deep truths of our shared human history. For a long time, there was a divide. On one side, you had archaeology, a field built on tangible evidence, bones, and soil layers that could be carbon dated and analyzed in a lab. It was all about what could be physically proven. On the other side, you had indigenous oral traditions rich, complex narratives, songs, and ceremonies that carry the history, laws, and wisdom of a people through time. These were often dismissed by Western science as myths or legends, beautiful but not factual. But what if I told you that this perspective is changing, and the results are nothing short of revolutionary? Imagine archaeologists digging at a site, puzzled by strange formations in the earth. They have the data, the soil samples, the radiocarbon dates, but the why remains a mystery. Then, they sit down with local indigenous elders who listen to their findings and say, "Ah, yes, our stories speak of that place. That was where our ancestors built a great fish, were to feed the people during a time of famine." Suddenly, the data isn't just data anymore. It has a story, a purpose, a human element. The oral tradition provides the context, the cultural significance that the artifacts alone could never fully express. This is not a one-off occurrence. It's happening in communities all over the world, from the coastal regions of North America to the vast deserts of Australia. Let's look at a concrete example. In Canada, on the coast of British Columbia, archaeologists in the Jitsa-Awa and Tsimshian First Nations have worked together to uncover evidence of human settlement dating back 14,000 years. The science confirmed the presence of ancient hearths and tools, but it was the oral traditions that brought the discovery to life. The stories spoke of ancestors who survived the last ice age, seeking refuge in ice-free pockets of land along the coast. The science validated the story, and the story gave profound meaning to the science. The archaeological find wasn't just a site, it was a tangible link to the ancestral narratives that have sustained these communities for millennia. This collaboration is a two-way street. Oral traditions can guide archaeologists to significant locations that might otherwise be overlooked. Stories about ancient villages, trade routes, or ceremonial sites act as a living map, pointing researchers toward areas rich with historical evidence. Think of it like this: the stories of the treasure map. And archaeology provides the tools to carefully unearth the treasure. Without the map, you're just digging randomly. Furthermore, indigenous knowledge systems often contain incredibly detailed environmental and historical information. Stories might describe a great flood, a volcanic eruption, or a dramatic shift in the coastline. For years, these might have been considered allegorical, but now, geologists and archaeologists are finding physical evidence layers of volcanic ash, ancient tsunami deposits, and submerged shorelines that line up perfectly with the timelines and descriptions in the oral histories. This proves that these traditions are not just stories. They are meticulous historical records, encoded in a narrative form that ensures their survival across generations. This new approach, often called indigenous archaeology, is about more than just combining two sets of information. It's about respect. It's about recognizing that there are multiple ways of knowing and understanding the world. It shifts the power dynamic from outside experts studying a culture to a collaborative partnership, where indigenous communities are the primary authorities on their own heritage. Archaeologists become allies, using their scientific tools to help communities answer their own questions about their past and strengthen their connections to their ancestral lands. When we braid together the what of science with the why and who of oral tradition, the picture of the past becomes infinitely richer and more complete. The data gets a soul, and the stories get a physical anchor in the world. It's a beautiful synthesis. We move beyond a simple timeline of events to understand the beliefs, the values, and the resilience of the people who lived those events. We learn not just that asterisk people lived in a certain place, but how they lived, what they believed, and what their lives meant to them. This fusion of science and spirit isn't just about understanding the past. It's crucial for our future. It teaches us a more holistic way of thinking and reminds us that knowledge comes in many forms. By listening to and respecting the ancient voices carried in oral traditions, we not only honor the indigenous communities who have preserved them, but we also gain a deeper, more human understanding of our collective journey on this planet. It's a powerful lesson that the deepest truths are often found not in division, but in connection. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration today. If this conversation sparked your curiosity, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating intersections of history, science, and culture. We'd love to have you as part of our community. See you in the next video. We've journeyed through time, tracing the outlines of great earthworks and standing in the shadows of monumental mounds. We've pieced together clues from artifacts, aligned structures with solstices, and listened to the echoes of ancient traditions. And now, we find ourselves here, at the edge of all we know, staring into the heart of an enduring mystery. What were they truly for? This is the question that hums beneath every discovery, the ultimate puzzle that our ancestors left for us etched into the very landscape. Were these colossal forms, sculpted with such immense effort, simply markers of territory or tombs for the elite? Or was their purpose something far grander? Something that stretched beyond the horizon of the living world and into the vast, silent cosmos? Consider this the sheer scale of these projects. We're talking about communities moving millions of cubic feet of earth, sometimes basket by basket, over generations. This wasn't a casual undertaking. It was a central, organizing principle of their society. Such a monumental investment of time, labor, and collective will must have been driven by a belief system of incredible power and significance. But what was that belief? One compelling theory is that these mounds were messages to the sky. Imagine a world without city lights, where the Milky Way blazes across the heavens like a celestial river. The sun, moon, and stars weren't just distant lights. They were powerful entities, deities, and cosmic timekeepers that governed the seasons, the hunts, and the harvests. Their movements were the rhythm of life itself. Could it be that by shaping the earth, these ancient people were trying to communicate with those celestial powers? Were they building replicas of the heavens on earth, creating a sacred space where the divine and the mortal could connect? Perhaps a great serpent mound wasn't just a symbol of a powerful spirit, but a prayer made of earth, slithering towards a specific point in the sky, appealing for fertility, protection, or renewal. Maybe a flat-topped pyramid mound was a man-made mountain platform designed to elevate a priest or a chief closer to the gods, allowing them to mediate between the world of spirits and the world of people. They were creating a direct line of communication, a physical conduit for spiritual energy. Then there's the tantalizing idea that these sites are maps of the stars. We've seen how some structures, like Cahokia's Woodhenge or the Newark Earthworks, show remarkable astronomical alignments. They track the solstices and equinoxes with a precision that is, frankly, astounding. But what if the alignments go deeper? What if the very placement of mounds within a complex mirrors the layout of a constellation, like Orion or the Pleiades? Think of it as a form of sacred geometry, a cosmic blueprint laid out upon the land. By building these star maps, were they trying to anchor the power of the cosmos to their home? Was it a way of ensuring cosmic order and stability in their own world? A method of harmonizing their society with the grand, predictable cycles of the universe? If you could map the heavens on your own land, perhaps you could draw down its power, its predictability, and its eternal nature. It would be the ultimate act of bringing the sacred into the everyday, transforming their entire territory into a living temple. This wasn't just about knowing when to plant corn. It was about embedding their entire existence within a celestial framework, making their lives a reflection of a divine, cosmic order. And finally, we must consider the most personal, most human possibility, that these mounds were prayers shaped in earth, not just requests, but physical manifestations of hope, grief, and reverence. Imagine a community coming together after a long drought. As they carry baskets of soil to build up a mound, every step, every ounce of effort, is a part of a collective supplication for rain. The mound itself becomes a testament to their faith, a physical accumulation of their hopes. Or think of the burial mounds. We often see them as simple tombs, but what if they were more? What if the act of covering a loved one with layers of sacred earth was a ritual process, a way of building a spiritual vessel to help the soul on its journey to the afterlife? The shape of the mound, the items placed within it, the orientation of the body, each element could have been a crucial part of a prayer for a safe and peaceful transition. The mound wasn't just a memorial for the living. It was a functional, spiritual structure for the dead. It was an act of profound love and care, a final gift to those who had passed on. These weren't just piles of dirt. They were sculptures of devotion. So, were they messages to the sky, maps of the stars, or prayers shaped in earth? The truth is, there were likely all of these things and more. We tend to look for a single, simple answer. But ancient belief systems were rarely so straightforward. They were complex, multi-layered tapestries of science, art, and spirituality, woven together seamlessly. A mound could simultaneously be an astronomical observatory, a map of a constellation, a platform for ritual, a chief's tomb, and a physical prayer. These purposes weren't mutually exclusive. They reinforced each other. The astronomical alignments gave the rituals their power. The celestial map gave the territory its sacred meaning. The act of building became the prayer itself. The genius of these ancient cultures was their ability to integrate every aspect of their world into a unified, meaningful whole. Their science was their religion, their art was their language, and their landscape was their scripture. What remains so captivating is that the earth itself holds the secret. The mounds are silent. They offer no written text, no definitive user's manual, and in that silence lies their enduring power. They force us to wonder, to imagine, and to connect with a human past that is both vastly different from our own and yet hauntingly familiar. They remind us that for thousands of years, people have looked at the world around them and the sky above them and sought to find their place within the grand cosmic story. The mystery isn't a failure of our understanding. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to stand where they stood, to look up at the same moon and stars, and to feel that same ancient human impulse, to reach for something beyond ourselves, to make our mark, and to shape our world into a place of meaning and wonder. The final chapter of this story isn't written in any book, because it's still being told every time we look upon these incredible earthworks and ask, why? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through time. If you've been as fascinated by these ancient mysteries as I have, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the past. Your support means the world and allows us to keep exploring these amazing stories together. Until next time, keep asking questions. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey in a place of quiet contemplation. Here, in the hush of the closing day, we can almost feel the echoes of the past. Let's take a moment to imagine them. The ones who came before, picture their hands, calloused and knowing as they worked with the earth. Hands that lifted stone, smoothed clay and carved wood. There was no grand announcement, no fanfare, just the steady, rhythmic sound of creation, a quiet hum of purpose that settled into the soil with each passing season. These builders didn't seek to conquer the landscape. They sought to be part of it. They listened to the whisper of the wind through the tall grasses, understood the language of the flowing river, and knew the secrets held within the heart of a stone. Their work was a conversation with the world around them, a partnership. Each structure they raised was not just a shelter, but a verse in a long, silent poem written upon the land. A poem of community, of survival, of reverence. Think of the silence they must have known, a silence unbroken by the clamor of our modern world. It was in this profound quiet that they could truly hear. They heard the subtle shifts of the seasons, the needs of their people, and perhaps the gentle guidance of the earth itself. Their legacy is just in the weathered stones or the faint outlines of their settlements that we can still trace today. It's in the very memory of the land. This memory is not written in books. It lives in the roots of ancient trees, in the curve of a hillside, and in the cool, dark soil beneath our feet. When we walk these ancient paths, we are walking through their silence, through their dedication. We are treading on ground that remembers the weight of their steps, the warmth of their fires, the songs they sang to their children under a blanket of stars. Their spirit is woven into the fabric of this place, a quiet, enduring presence. The sun dips below the horizon now, painting the sky in soft shades of lavender and rose. The world grows still. The memory of these builders becomes a gentle lullaby carried on the evening breeze. It's a song of quiet hands and patient hearts, a reminder that what is built with love and respect becomes a part of the earth, its eternal story. Their silence was not an absence of sound, but a fullness of being, a deep connection that we can still feel if we just stop and listen. As we stand here, on the threshold of twilight, we are not just observers of history. We are participants in its long, unfolding dream. The same moon that watches over us now watched over them then. The same stars that glitter in the vast, dark sky were their celestial guides. We are connected to them through the simple, timeless rhythm of day and night, of earth and sky. Their story is a part of our story. Their memory is not a ghost that haunts this land, but a gentle guardian. It's in the resilience of the wildflowers that push through cracks in old stone walls. It's in the steadfastness of the hills that have witnessed countless generations come and go. It is a quiet strength, a testament to a life lived in harmony with the world, not against it. We can learn from their silence, from their deep, unspoken understanding. And now, as the darkness deepens and the first stars begin to appear, let this feeling of peace settle over you. Let the memory of the land be your guide into rest. Imagine the quiet hands of the builders, their work done for the day. Imagine the soft glow of a communal fire, the low murmur of voices sharing stories. This is a peace that has endured for centuries, a tranquility that is etched into the very soul of the earth. Let your own thoughts begin to quiet down like ripples on a still pond. Let the worries of the day drift away like leaves on a gentle stream. You are part of this long, unbroken chain of existence. You are held by the same earth that held them. You are safe within its ancient embrace. Close your eyes. Breathe in the cool night air. Breathe out and release. Feel the steady, solid ground beneath you, a foundation of memory and silence. The story of the builders is now a soft whisper, a lullaby for the land and for you. It speaks of cycles, of rest, and of renewal. It tells you that after every long day of building, of working, of living, there comes a time for stillness, a time for peace. Allow this peace to cradle you. Let the gentle rhythm of your own breath sink with the silent pulse of the earth. The night is a soft blanket, woven with threads of starlight and ancient memories. Rest now. Drift into a sleep as deep and as peaceful as the silent land itself. Let the quiet hands of the past guide you gently into your dreams, where you too can walk in the quiet harmony of the earth's long memory. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time and silence. If you found a moment of peace here, I'd be so grateful if you would like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories from the heart of the land. May your rest be deep and your dreams be sweet. Good night.